This is an overarching package of news stories, and I'm gonna do kind of a punch list here of these news stories, and there's a reason why. Just bear with me. But first, I gotta tie into this the Wall Street Journal Jeffrey Epstein story. We'll start here. Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him bawdy letters for a 50th birthday album. One was from Donald Trump. Voiceover. It's not clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared. Inside the outline of a naked woman was a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein, written in the third person. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Donald, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. Guys, I've gotten notes from Donald Trump before. Ironically, he would have his secretary scan things I had written, and then he, with a Sharpie, would write the note on it. She would turn it into a PDF and email me. I've never gotten a note like that from Donald Trump. I'm not saying it's not from Donald Trump, but I am saying that if the Wall Street Journal, to meet editorial standards, really wanted to convince us it was from Donald Trump, they should at least show it to us. And they did not. They described it. How do we know it's not AI generated? How do we know these things? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is a credible organization. I'm not rushing to cancel my subscription, but I've gotten notes from Donald Trump. I hear the man speak. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time thinking this is from Donald Trump. It doesn't sound like him, nor does it sound like something anyone else would prepare. And I'm willing to believe a lot about Donald Trump. I'm just having a hard time with this one. I'm sorry. It's silly season. Normally, silly season begins August 1st. That's when Congress goes on vacation. For the month of August through Labor Day, Congress goes on vacation. Schools in the D.C. area don't start until after Labor Day. Everybody leaves town in August, and it's the stupid headlines that make story. And here is the danger for Donald Trump on the Epstein stuff. He says there will be no special counsel. As the president must surely remember, we're headed to August. And August is the silly season in Washington because Congress is gone, the president is on vacation, and the crazy stories take on a life of their own. Whether it's the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth when John Kerry was running, or Cindy Sheehan during the Iraq War, or Joe Biden, even his foibles at the beach in Delaware, and umbrellas getting away from him in the wind, and him on vacation and his family. Stories about presidents tend to take on a life of their own in August, because in August, when the political cycle is on pause because everyone is gone, the news media kind of runs through just the dumbest stories that they can get clicks on, and Epstein gets a lot of clicks. So if the president of the United States placed the Epstein files in the hands of a special prosecutor, that would actually shut down that news story more effectively than anything else. We are headed into August, where these sorts of news stories are the news stories the media loves to rush and thrive and give life to. So you put it in the hands of a special prosecutor, and suddenly this is a story that can't gain further traction with the media because they got to wait for the special prosecutor. You want to tamp down on stories like this before you get to August. And silly season is starting early, and we're starting to see a rush of Epstein stories. There's an Epstein story at Business Insider today about Steve Bannon, that he filmed Jeffrey Epstein for 15 hours and was supposed to do a documentary, and it turns out they actually were friends, according to Business Insider. Reading from them now, Bannon grew closer to Epstein in the summer of 2018, advising him on how to handle his myriad legal and media investigations. They continued to spend time with each other through the following summer when Epstein was arrested in Manhattan on sex trafficking charges. Bannon's explanation that he was producing a documentary about Epstein was nonsense, according to people who spent time with both men around the time they were in each other's lives. In reality, the two acted like friends around each other. And Bannon, these people said, was trying to help Epstein, a notorious sex offender, with his public relations problems. The drip, drip, drip against Donald Trump is now coming for Donald Trump's friends. Whether the stories are true or not doesn't matter. It's major media outlets are starting to run these sorts of stories. You'll want to hand this off to a special prosecutor to hit pause. It's silly season in Washington, D.C. These are the stories that take on a life of their own. It's something the president's team has to be mindful of. And then there's the Stephen Colbert stuff and the absolute meltdown from the progressive press over Stephen Colbert losing his show on CBS. Stephen Colbert was not funny. It was group therapy for the left. I can only imagine the meltdown that's going to happen from the left. PBS and NPR are now defunded, and now they've canceled the Stephen Colbert show. It's another reason they're going to focus on the Epstein stuff to try to distract themselves from their losses. The PBS NPR meltdown is just super disingenuous. They told us that they hardly got any federal funding, and now that the funding is gone, they want everybody to think people are going to die. I mean, we're really back to hearing people are going to die. You know what's actually happening? We've got the Epstein story. We've got the Colbert story. We've got the PBS story. You know what's actually happening? People are still in Texas looking for the bodies of the children. My buddy Chip Roy, the representative for that area, listen to this conversation he had in Congress.
There's a lot of folks here talking about and extolling the virtues of NPR, PBS, public broadcasting, and so forth, and talked about how they're cutting their funding is somehow going to endanger communities and rural communities. Well, when the floods were hitting the people that I represent, it took NPR through Texas Public Radio 19 hours to post anything about the flooding on its social media. What was NPR and TPR doing in the interim? What were they doing in the morning at 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning when private radio stations that I listened to and that I talked to were breaking in and presenting the information of the news? They were playing a program, a DC-based program, lobbying Congress for billions of dollars to continue their funding. When the flood hit at 4 in the morning, instead of providing local news, they were airing the morning edition of the Washington, D.C. Well, that's fine. They already had it pre-taped. I get that. But they didn't break in like the local stations did and so forth. The 7 private stations posted over 70 alerts on their social pages throughout the day, starting at 7:24 in the morning. My point being, private stations in the communities in which I live were there for the people of Texas. They were there presenting the information necessary. And the public stations were completely MIA.
That's Chip Roy from Texas. The public broadcasting stations were trying to get people to call Congress. They weren't actually covering the news that was needed on the ground in Texas at the time that it was needed. Do not forget, there are still bodies not yet recovered in Texas. There are still damage assessments in Texas. We are increasing our commitments to Ukraine. There are parts of the world at war. And Washington, D.C. is self-absorbed, narcissistic, obsessed with itself. And as it heads into August and Congress is not in town, it always turns inward. You want to shut down those stories. You want to shut down the Epstein story. You want to move on to other things. You do it by passing it off to a special prosecutor. But also, there's so much more out there than Jeffrey Epstein to cover. There's so much more out there than PBS. But the media loves to make everything about themselves, and the media is on a full-on meltdown. Listen to the disingenuousness from Abby Phillips on CNN about the PBS cuts.
I agree that defunding public television is a big story, and it's way beyond politics because there are a lot of things on public television that have absolutely nothing to do with politics, and that all gets destroyed and torn down as well. So you're right. But, everything being filtered through this sort of righty-lefty frame, I think is really actually a sad statement on where we are as a country. Like, kids watching Sesame Street really don't care about your politics, and they're going to get affected by some of this too.
Oh, they're going to get affected. Really? 1% of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting money comes from Washington, D.C. They're not going to be affected. Do you know the merchandise deals that PBS gets for Sesame Street? They probably get more money out of the merchandise deals, or could, than they get from the government. They had a deal with HBO for a while. They syndicated around the show. They've got a Palestinian version of Sesame Street that probably is trying to teach kills how to kill Jews. It's the most bizarre thing to think that they need government funding. It's the most bizarre thing to think that we got to trot out the kids. Oh, the children, do it for the children. If you've been around long enough, I was on a city council, and any time members of city council where I was on city council wanted to raise taxes or spend big, it was, it's for the children. Do it for the children. Always for the, and now we got Abby Phillips. Oh, do it for the children. You got to fund PBS for the children. No, the hell you don't. And now you've got these people out there saying it's only a couple $1 billion. We've got a $39 trillion debt. Have you ever listened to Dave Ramsey? Start with the small stuff. Start with a couple $1 billion. Now you've added $2 billion back to the pot. Okay, now find $100 billion. Okay, now you've got $102 billion. Now you're more than a tenth of the way through $1 trillion. Keep going. Find more stuff to cut. The idea that you shouldn't cut the Corporation for Public Broadcasting because it's chump change, that's exactly where you start. Pull the quarters out of the couch first. But it's silly season in Washington. And now they're having a meltdown over Stephen Colbert. Y'all, I don't care what Stephen Colbert's ratings were. They still weren't great compared to what David Letterman had. Stephen Colbert, you will forget, came in, was not funny. There were rumors of him being canceled until Trump came on the scene, and Donald Trump saved Stephen Colbert. And now the media's like, oh, they're canceling him because of their deal with Donald Trump. Nah, they're canceling him because he was probably making more money than CBS was making off of him. He had on Adam Schiff. His show turned into late night group therapy. It wasn't funny. It wasn't compelling television. It affirmed the left every which way they could. The only people who are outraged about it are people on the left, and frankly, late night television is dying. If CBS wanted to save it, they would give it to Shane Gillis. Let Shane Gillis do a late night show on CBS, and I guarantee you he would get the ratings and the eyeballs. But they don't want to do that because Shane Gillis makes jokes about the left, and you can't have any comedian on TV anymore who's willing to be an equal opportunity offender. It's got to go all in one direction. The left did it to themselves. CBS did it to themselves. They ruined David Letterman's legacy by letting a guy who did a pretty good stunt of pretending to be a right-wing comic on Comedy Central become a left-wing comic on CBS, and he was the male version of Hannah Gadsby. Not very funny, but insisted you laugh. It's silly season. These are the stories to talk about.